Well, welcome. I honestly just am so thankful that you're joining us for these conversations. I know if you've listened to these, I've said these multiple times, that I find these conversations are more impactful than the teachings themselves. And so honestly, just thank you for taking the time to watch them. And I believe these have a power to help us go deeper. I even encourage them where they're impacting you or helping you to help share them, because that's our heart. Is all we want is to help us as followers of Jesus continue to grow. And so today we're going to talk about the way of honor, what it looks like to reclaim the way of honor. And I'm joined by Shon and Jacob, and just excited to have this conversation. So guys, start where we always start, and want to talk about just what are the points of significance that kind of stand apart in the message and what we have to talk through, and in this idea of reclaiming the way of honor. And so Shon, I want to start with you. Just as you listen, what were those things?
Yeah, I think, Phil, for me, walking out of Sunday was just like a renewed desire to be a person of honor.
Yeah.
And
Same.
to walk with honor, to live with honor, and to be thought of by other people as someone who is honorable. Yeah. So I think that was just kind of a work of the Spirit, recreating a sense of desire that there is a call, a way of honor that God wants us to live, and I want to be that person. And then I think subsequent to that, I also want to honor people well.
Yeah.
And when people are with me or in my presence, I want them to genuinely feel honored, and not fake honored, as if I'm like trying too hard to to honor someone, but to genuinely feel loved and cared for, honored, and seen. And so I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. Like, I want to be an honorable person, and I want other people to feel honored when they're in my presence. I think outside of that, I think there were probably, like a lot of other people, just walked away with questions.
Yeah.
And I think some of the questions that I walked away with, and I suspect others had to, kind of center around some of the definitions of these words that we use. And so for example, like I know what it is to show someone respect, especially someone who is respectable. I know how to admire someone, and I know what admiration is, especially for people who have done something admirable. But honor is not a word that we typically use in our culture. And so I think sometimes there's just uncertainty around what is exactly honor. When we say we're supposed to walk in the way of honor, what is that way? And so I think, I'd love to hear, if you've kind of worked through this through preparation,
yeah.
Like teaching it 4 times, like what does honor, what does it actually mean? What does honor mean to you? And then I think secondly, the question I think, I had was, how do you honor someone who has maybe done something dishonorable? Yeah. And I think that tension, right? So what really is honor, and how do we honor people that we know maybe have said and done things that we would describe as dishonorable?
Yeah. Oh man, it's so good. And I think that and I said this during my teachings, but part of why this matters is certainly in this sermon, I'm trying to cast a vision of something that we need to reclaim, but it's going to require a lot more than that vision to fully understand and to produce in our lives, because Jesus functioned in honor in all that he did, right? So that doesn't mean I'm trying to, read something into scriptures that aren't there, but that's a reality, right? If Jesus, if love of agape is not dishonoring, so agape is therefore honor, and Jesus was in all moments functioning out of agape, then we can say that what honor looks like in practical circumstances is fully represented in the life of Jesus, and I think fully represented in the life of the New Testament, right? Even though the authors of the New Testament were men and who were not perfect, they were not Jesus, we believe God met them uniquely in their writings to actually display what is perfect and what is true about Jesus. So I think we can, this again, it's like one of those hard answers where you're like, well, if you want to know honor, you got to know the New Testament, right? And I don't mean that to be like you can't know this. I just say that's why we have to become biblically literate again, because it is this thing we have to unwork and do. And one of the things that as I reflected on my own teaching, I don't know if I said well enough, was that part of what I wanted people to see is that this thing of honor is so much bigger than they think it is. And that the baseline, the foundation of honor that exists towards every single human being is so much higher than they think it is. Mm-hmm. And I wanted people to catch that vision, that we have lowered something that God has made very, very quite high. But in that doesn't mean honor is static. Honoring everyone doesn't mean everyone receives the same honor. Mm-hmm. What honoring everyone means is that there is a baseline of honor that everyone gets. And then there are circumstances in which different kinds of honor, different expressions of honor are uniquely given to different people, different circumstances, and different situations, right? Even what I talked about and why salvation matters so much, because there's a baseline of honor for Imago Dei, for anyone who is an image bearer of God, that God will never take away from them. But there is a other honor for those of us who are now adopted in Jesus. And it's really foolish to actually say everybody gets those same honors. It's not true, right? And even when we think about it distinctly in people's lives, there is different realities of honor. So I think, anyways, the practical, getting back to you, right? What you asked, Shon, is that honor in essence is the value and the worth of every human being simply because they are created in the image of God, and the rights and the value and the worth that God endows to them regardless of how they steward it. So there is a posture of honor. So that's a baseline of honor. And then the secondary level of honor is then, so there's an honor everybody has because of who they are, regardless of how they steward it. Our enemies are worthy of honor because they have something we cannot take away from them. But then there is a secondary nature of honor, which is what? It is honoring the worth and value of who someone is. So I can have a baseline of honor for a dishonorable person that cannot actually ever go lower than what God has set it to be. But then I can add honor to someone who has a possession, who has an identity, who has something in them that is uniquely worthy of honor. And I think that is what we have to understand. And so in that, when we talk about, how do we live out honor, I think the greatest thing I would say is that honor looks like obedience to Jesus and the practical outflow of those things. I mean, even Jesus, Matthew 18, talks about how we handle hurt and conflict and forgiveness. These are all the ways of honor in those things, right? So Jesus tells us, what if somebody hurts me, how do I respond in honor to that person who hurt me? I go to them. I don't go to other people. I go to them. I provide pathways for reconciliation. I contend for reconciliation. And it is only under the circumstances where reconciliation becomes impossible that I close the door. That's honor. So honor towards somebody who hurt me, just as a practical scenario, isn't like, hey, keep hurting me. Let's never talk about this. My honor towards you is that I'm never going to bring this up. No. That's not biblical honor. Biblical honor is the right way of doing the convictions of Jesus. And I think that is what we have to see. And so I think, and we could do that in every scenario possible. And that's why I would say why we have to come back to radical obedience of Jesus, because it is that obedience to Jesus that displays that level of honor. And then to your second question, which, again, we could ask 10,000 questions that are worthy of 10,000 answers. But again, I call us back to the scriptures. How do we honor someone who is dishonorable? Well, I think Jesus gives us a few things, right? First, Jesus says to love our enemies. If we're honest, the reason you have an enemy is because you feel dishonored by them. Like, find me an enemy you feel honored by. You know what I mean? I mean, it's there's a connection there. And so Jesus actually says to love our enemies, to bless our enemies, to give to our enemies, to, in this vision, I've talked about it before, right? In doing so, you will put burning coals on their head. It's not a statement of relational vengeance. It's a statement of ministering to what they lack. So honor is actually the ability to see when somebody is mistreating me, it is because of a lack. And so honor sees past the offense, and in the power and the spirit of Jesus moves through the offense to love, bless, serve, and restore what is there. Now, I also think the scriptures say where that scenario becomes so impossible or painful or dangerous, and there's no receptivity towards that, you can then build boundaries and not. So again, it's not a constant place in there. But that's where I'm saying, and I think, of course, the passage I brought up of Romans 13 of honoring the emperor. Like again, I think this both bleeds into honoring dishonor. Nero was a dishonorable person.
Yeah.
This is before the heights of the Neronian persecutions, to be fair to Paul and the Roman church. But at this moment, Nero is a pretty terrible dude, beyond what we could imagine. And I think Paul calls him to two levels of honor, right? And this is why we have to understand honor. He calls him to the level of honor because Nero, even as a terrible human being, is imago Dei, worthy of something. But then Nero, also as emperor, is something else, regardless of whether he's a good or terrible person. There is an honor we give to leaders, even when they're terrible leaders. And that is really hard. There's an honor that should be given to school teachers, even when they're bad school teachers. There's an honor that should be given to parents, even when they're bad parents. There is an honor that should be given to pastors, even when they're poor in their leadership. There is an honor that should be given to presidents, no matter the rule and reign of their presidency. And again, what I'm not saying in any of those things is I honor you, beat me with your afflictions and I'll take them regardless of what they are.
Yeah.
But it is going, hey, you hold a position of authority. The Bible says that anyone who's in a position of authority is worthy of a unique honor. So I both will honor the imago Dei of you, and I will honor the status of you. And I will figure out where I need to speak to you, where I need to subvert you, where I need to leave you, where I need to stand against you. I am willing to do all of those things, but I will do them in the way of honor. And I think that just takes, honestly, it takes time. It just takes time. And I think specifically, when we think about a dishonorable person, what I would say is that Paul says in 2 Corinthians, right, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual principalities. So when we come to a moment of profound dishonor, part of what we recognize is that our true enemy is of a spiritual nature. It's not of a physical nature. And so I can disconnect the evil that's coming my way from the image bearer of God, who is the instrument of that evil. And when we can do that, what it does is it means that I can actually operate in this pretty radical function, which we see Jesus on the cross do what? Say, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Like, that's honor. Right? It's crazy. That's honor. Like, Jesus looked at the people who were murdering him and saw value. That's honor. That is honor. And honor in a way that only Jesus will be able to do, but honor in a way that he's inviting his people into. So I think that it is a reframing that we have to go through to navigate pain. And what we'll find is that if we'll commit to the way of honor, it'll do several things. It'll protect us, because honor actually protects you. It's a weird thought, but it actually, even though it's for others, it protects you. Honor will also has redemptive power. So part of God's vision is always redemption. So honor has a power to redeem that other things do not. And then third, honor communicates Jesus. So even in the midst of all of these things, it's bringing glory to the one who matters the most, which is Jesus. And so it's about learning how to take this tool into everything that we do.
And I think, kind of going back to that kind of this first idea of just showing honor, I think, kind of Western culture, Western mindset, nothing has value until it produces something.
Yes.
Nothing has value until it accomplishes something. Nothing has value until it achieves something. So I think as Westerners, we have a hard time of giving something honor or value until it has done something productive or valuable to us. And so the fact that something would exist and have an inherent honor is almost, I think, a foreign concept to a Western mind or Western individual. And certainly it's not representative of how we live or oftentimes, treat others. So I think this helping all of us understand that, like, people have an inherent worth and value that's honorable because it was put there by God. and this is like the example you gave with Jesus, before he does anything, right? Before he accomplishes anything, before he performs, even a miracle, God sees the honor that's inherent in him, bestows it upon him, communicates it to him. And so I think for us, like that's it's something that we need to learn how to do, right? How to honor people before that's done in a way where we're not just trying to get something of value from them. So because I think without that, we just become consumers of people and of things.
Oh, Shon, it's so true. And I even think, in the third service, I gave a practical example that I didn't speak to in every service. And I want to unpack that here because it had to do with a relationship that is, as a pastor, I'm in a lot of relationships that I don't always want to use their relationship in a way that isn't honoring to them. Felt comfortable sharing in third service, but part of it is this place of actually, when we find ourselves in the middle of those tensions of dishonor, it comes back to this place of, do I really trust the Lord to care for me? And so part of the reason I can step into enemy love is because the Lord has promised me he will deal with my enemies.
Yeah.
And he will deal with my enemies in love and in honor, but love and honor holds accountable. That's what we have to understand. Actually, honor holds people accountable. You dishonor people by not holding them accountable. We think not holding people accountable is some form of kindness. It is not. It is dishonor. Accountability is a form of honor because it actually speaks to what you really believe about someone, right? When you think about that, if everything I believe, if I'm actually functioning in relationships towards everything I believe about someone, accountability becomes a form of honor. And so what it is, it's the ability to go, when Jesus says this, Paul says this multiple times, that the Lord is my avenger. Yeah. If there needs to be an avenging for what has happened to me, the Lord will do it. Yeah. He really will. And that's a place of going, I can step into this moment of seeing beyond what maybe feels earned or deserved. Because God wants this lost son or daughter back home. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if that lost son or daughter never wants to come home, they will also be accountable for what they've done. And I just trust Jesus and how he'll steward that. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is just so important because it just comes back to that place of trust.
I just was reminded, maybe it's the growing up on Veggie Tales in me that has this in it, but like, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and the king. And and growing up, it was always one of the story of Daniel and just listening to how they treated the wicked king with honor throughout their entire life. And you even said just then that God comes through at the end of it, and you trust enough, you honor enough to then trust that God's going to come through on your behalf. And we see it in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is what? He saves them from the fire. And the king ends up, with what he deserves. But that God comes in, he steps in and saves it. And it just has been that was just on my mind as you go through just these older stories of people displaced under wicked kings and consistently showing honor and doing the things that were good to God and good to them as well.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's again one of those remarkable stories of honor. Yeah. And I even think about even in this conversation that we're having, it's reminding me of how of actually why it matters that the Christian community goes first, right? Because our world is a world of dishonor. Our world is a world where honor has been disproportionately shown or taken from some and given to others. It's on status or achievement or certain circumstances. And then you even get into our history and you realize it was shown on issues of race and issues of these other things. And again, what's so heartbreaking to me, even thinking about us last month celebrating some elements of Black History Month, is these moments become political for people. And as the world divides into polarization, everything has a political baggage to it, and it's grievous to me because that's not what's happening. Even think in what is the desire? 1926, the United States creates Black History Month. Why? Because they recognized that there was not an honor shown. There was not an honor shown to the contributions of the Black community. There was not an honor shown to the lives of the Black community. There was not an honor shown to the story, right? And I don't pretend that we're in 1926 anymore. We're not. I don't pretend we've arrived either. But there's that place of going, oh my gosh, imagine what it would be like to feel that your very skin color communicated dishonor, to be treated dishonorably. And the church treated you dishonorably. And the church didn't think you were Imago Dei. And the church showed you that. And it just grieves your heart. The church should be first in line in Black History Month. Yeah. And again, like all of my, I'm not trying to speak on anyone's behalf, but as all of my Black friends would say, the desire of Black History Month is that there should be no Black History Month, right? The desire of any of these things, right? The desire of Veterans Day is not Veterans Day. It's to go, veterans in our country in seasons weren't honored. Yeah. There was a dishonor. That Mother's Day is the recognition that moms carry something so hard, and we often don't honor the fullness of what they carry. And so we try to set aside a day, Father's Day. I mean, we think about these things, even in our Christian tradition, the Christmas story, the resurrection story, the Pentecost story, we're trying to bring honor to things that can drift. And what it means to be a follower of Jesus is that we constantly come back into that place of honor that doesn't drift. If honor never drifted, we would probably not need to have any celebrations other than just like, we like to party, right? Like even your birthday. What is your birthday? It's saying you are a person of honor. And you're worthy once a year of having your friends and your family go, we honor you. We see you. We see your value, your worth, your accomplishments, what you bring to the table. Anyways, I'm talking too much, breaking my own rule. Jacob, what about you? When you thought about Sunday, like what really stood apart for you?
It had to have been just the beginning of the sermon where you start by saying that you can't show honor to someone unless you really know how honored you are by God. Yeah. And as I sat and thought about that, I go, that's not something I was taught. I was taught God loves me. He died for me, all of these things from a kid, but like the idea that God honors me was honestly sort of a foreign thought in my head. And so, I mean, like if we could unpack, like what does that look like? You know, what does like God's honor to you look like? You know, I think that is probably would be one pretty helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, I'd love to hear all you guys' thoughts too. And I think, I mean, again, and that's why the beauty of the picture of John 8 and Jesus and the woman who's caught in adultery holds so much power, right? Is because certainly this is an expression of love. And but now we understand that honor is this facet of love. Honor isn't all that love is, but honor is a facet of love. And I think that you're right, Jacob, this is not something we've been taught. And this is not something we've learned how to figure out. And when we do talk about it, we almost always talk about it in how we interact with each other, which is a great conversation. Yeah. But to imagine that the God of the universe saw a broken, sinful woman in the moments and hours of adultery is a sin unlike others. The break of what it does to you, the break of what it does to covenant, the break of what it does to families. Where adultery is a moment of great consequence in the lives of people. It sends waves of pain throughout communities, right? And that even in the midst of that, Jesus saw something. Yeah. Which means he sees it in us. He sees it in me. He sees it. And he actually does. And some of this is, I think, bad theology, where the Bible says things like our righteousness is like a filthy rags before the Lord. That's true. But that isn't a statement of our righteousness in an attempt to earn salvation.
Mm.
It is not a statement of, God doesn't see you as a filthy rag. He's saying your attempt to earn reunion with him out of your own righteousness, it's like a bunch of menstruating rags compared to what Jesus did. And it is. The idea that you can re-earn your reunion with God based on your own activity is like that. But that's not how God sees you. The fact that we are inherently broken and separated from God, and therefore will face the consequences of that separation and the consequences of the wrath of God is true, is real. And so often, though, we take that to bad places of theology. That the Father hates me, that the Father is against me, that actually God doesn't really like me, he just likes Jesus. And if I get Jesus in me, then he likes me. Not true. Not true.
And I think too, some of that, Jacob, part of the reason is that, practically speak, the kind of reason for this idea is that it's so hard to embrace this thought that, like God would look at us and treat us with honor. Is that, practically speaking, our Bibles begin in Genesis chapter 3.
Yes.
That Genesis chapter 1.
So good, Shon.
Right? So for most of us growing up, we were told that the story of humanity began in chapter 3 with the sin of Adam and Eve, the brokenness of their lives, and the consequences of all those decisions. Yeah. As opposed to Genesis chapter 1, which is God created us, and it wasn't just good, but it was very good. And I think if we could reclaim our story beginning in Genesis chapter 1, as opposed to Genesis chapter 3, we'd first learn, first come to understand that God really does have an honor for us because, of who we are. But it also ties into our earlier conversations because we were made in his image, and it was good. It was good. Right? It was good before it was broken. And so I think, for a lot of us, myself included, grew up being taught and told that our story began in brokenness as opposed to wholeness. Yeah. And the fight then is how to, becomes how do I, put something back together that's been broken, as opposed to how do I heal something and bring it back to wholeness, back to the way that, God's vision of my life is actually the restored relationship Adam had with God before sin. And so I think there's good reason why people feel that and grew up believing it is because, again, practically speaking, when we open up the Bible, we begin with Genesis chapter 3 as opposed to Genesis chapter 1.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a reclaiming that needs to happen. Yes. I mean, in my own life, but I think throughout the church, a reclaiming of it's one of these core identity statements I think that we need to bring back. God loves me and he honors me. Yeah. And I just wonder what the shift would be. I just can imagine a shift of people that grow up knowing that, oh, I'm loved and honored by God. What the difference they make in the world versus.
Totally. And you're right. And you even think about it, when the Romans mocked the growth of the early church, it was spreading like wildfire all over the Roman Empire. What did they say? This is the religion of women and slaves. And you think about that. Those who were dishonored in Rome were honored in Jesus' community. What made the gospel flourish was actually they saw what we've lost. They saw honor. And they were able to come to hurting, broken people of low statuses in society and go, yeah, you know who you really are? You're Genesis 1. Yeah. Right? Going Shon, you want to know who you really are? You are Imago Dei. And not only are you Imago Dei, you are now son of the king. And son of the king is actually sat now in where the king sits. So you look at, I love this, you look at the names of the Christians in Romans 16. So many of them are slaves. Several of them we know through historical record are unique names of slaves to the actual empirical rule. They would have been slaves of the household of Nero. And you just love this idea of a slave in the household of Nero whose true status is now higher than the emperor of the living world. Yeah. And that is what is happening. And when these little tribes of Christian followers of Jesus got together, they understood that. Yeah. That this was the community, and honor broke out about it. And guys, it's just even what so many people don't understand, or where they come to places of bad theology, honor actually teaches us a lot about this. We mentioned this before we started filming, but what people don't understand is even our theology of hell, a theology of eternal consequences. I believe in hell. I don't like the word hell because it carries a lot of baggage that is unbiblical. But I absolutely believe you cannot believe the authority of Jesus and the authority of scriptures without believing that our lives come to eternal consequences where you can be in future eternity with Jesus and possibly not in future eternity with Jesus. And part of it, you go, how could a good God do that? How could a good God do that? Well, very easy, by the way, because he does it from honor. Yeah. He does it from honor, both because he actually allows your choices to matter. That's honor, number one. And number two, he will hold accountable all of our decisions in lives. And a God who does not hold accountable our decisions in life is not honorable. The idea that God is going to look at Mother Teresa and at Hitler and go, both of you are in my image. Come on in. Doesn't matter how you live.
Yeah.
It's not honor. And it's not heaven. Yeah. It is a reality. And I just said those two phrases and we think really, really good person and obviously one of the most evil people who lived in history, right? Yeah. And we have to understand the gospel changes that narrative a little bit, that we are not now standing before God based on our own merit. But nonetheless, God is very clear. We will be judged for our works. Yeah. Right? So our works don't earn us salvation, but our works will still fall under a place of judgment before God. And he will hold accountable all people. He will. Honor, when you take away honor from the gospel, here's what's crazy. It both perverts the nature of God's love and it perverts the nature of God's holiness. Yeah. Honor is where those two things find their way. When you take honor out of the story, you go really, really crazy places.
Yeah. I think too, like one of the challenges culturally to honor, kind of from a kind of Western, perspective is, or maybe maybe say this way, maybe one of the enemies of honor is choice. Yeah. Which we have so much of here. So if there's something I find dishonorable, I don't want to honor, in my world, I can always choose to find something else that I deem is honorable. And so even, I know this is so contentious right now, but even in the realm of like elected leaders, I've got choice. If I don't like someone, I can vote for someone else, right? Yeah. The first century world, your choices are very, very limited. In fact, when it comes to like
democracy is pretty foreign.
Right, yeah. Exactly. When it comes to the emperor, there is no choice. Like if I don't like the emperor, I can't say, well, I'm not going to honor him and I'm going to honor this emperor over here, right? There's no choice. I have to. And so I almost wonder if like the tyranny of choice in our culture doesn't actually allow me to develop a culture of honor for everyone in my life, because I can pick and choose who I want to show honor to and who I don't want to show honor to.
Yeah, well, Shon, that's an amazing thought. It really is an amazing thought. And it reminds us, there's a passage in the Old Testament, right? As the servant would look to his master and as the mistress would look to her maiden, so I look to you, Lord, right? Mm-hmm. It's a statement of two people who have no options, who look to their only option. As a mistress would look to her maiden, as a servant would look to his master. They have no other choice of who they can look to. So I look to you. I, who have choice, now reduce my life to one choice, and it's you. And whatever you would ask me to do. And I think if we could do that, it would reclaim the way of honor in all of the variables of choices that we actually have to make. Yeah. Can we just do this this is what I'm thinking, like, we just need to do this on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like,
just have a panel.
We never know. Maybe a time will come where gathered in person, we'll be able to do a Sunday service and have hey, stick around.
People don't understand. We'll
do this live. We'll do this live. It'd be so fun, right?
Well, people actually don't understand how much of how we do church is connected to our limitations of our building. Yeah. That we wouldn't do, by the way, like this or not, we wouldn't do our services if we weren't trying to host 4. We wouldn't do, we would create, I have a lot of vision for intentional community, a lot of vision for creativity and worship and response, a lot of things that we want to do, and even in the way we would steward services, opportunities we would create. So it's just funny when you think about, there's so many dreams in us that we're trying to steward them right for what we've been given. But man, when God opens doors, there's a lot that will come out of us.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. I honor both of you.
Yeah.
And I love you guys a lot.
You.
So fun. Guys, thank you for joining us. Listen, let's do this. Let's reclaim honor. Love you guys.